ahead and get started with the study session. First, before we get in, we have 3 today. Before we get into that, Mr. City Clerk, do we have anybody who wishes to speak on any of the items?
We have a request to speak on item number 3 of the study session.
Okay, well, why don't we, let's do 1 and 2, and then when we get to 3, we'll start off with the speaker, if that's okay. Yes.
Yeah, you might want to say if there's any report out of closed session, or you do it in.
We do that once the meeting.
In the meeting, sorry, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Good. All right, let's go to number 1. Economic Development Plan Priorities, presentation by Omar Databoy, Community Development Director, Deputy City Manager. Welcome, Omar.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll just be presenting a brief part of this, and I'll be...
Hold on a sec. Is his mic on? I don't think his mic is on.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. So, in the end of last year, November, we adopted an Economic Development Action Plan. As you recall, there were a number of action items as part of that plan. And subsequently, as part of the strategic plans, the City Council asked staff to look at the action items and then prioritize them. And so we've done so. It's in your agenda packet. What I'd like to do is introduce the 2 staff members as part of our economic development team. We have Ron Vargas, who you've seen in the past. He's our planning and economic development associate. And new to the team is Victor Veramontes. He is our management analyst, and he has a robust past in working with economic development as well. And so we're excited to have him on the team. And so I'm going to introduce them and call them up, and they're going to present the plan to you. And then we'll be all available for questions as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Council. So as Omar mentioned, last year staff in partnership with HDL developed a detailed economic development action plan which identified key strategies and ways to attract, retain, and expand business here in the city. Up here. Council then reviewed the EDAP and instructed staff to provide a priority list based on the plan and ways staff can implement goals and action items outlined in the plan. HDL recognized 6 key areas of focus and identified implementations in, HDL recognized 6 areas of focus and identified ways to implement these in the near term, short term, and long term. Staff has reviewed these action items and prioritized and implemented these items identified in the EDAP based on fiscal year. Victor can go over how we've identified these items based off fiscal year and ways to which we can achieve these goals.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. As a staff, we met to discuss, to review all the action items in the EDAP. And we discussed what's the best way to prioritize them to kind of organize ourselves. And we thought the best way to do is create 4 categories that would correspond to fiscal years. So by doing that, then we created a chronological order. We arranged all the action items, and then we did by fiscal year, which then had a chronological order, which would assist us in implementation and then also assist us in budgeting for some of them in the future. So for that, we went ahead and the priority number 1 was those items that we feel we can start working on and implementing this current fiscal year. So we're talking to June. Priority 2 would be those items that we could start implementing 24-25. Priority 4 would be those items 25-26. And fiscal year 26-27 would, so those were the 4 categories. And so now we have a chronological order of all the action items contained in the Economic Development Action Plan. These are related to the crossings, the shops, Miles Square Park. Right now we're in the current fiscal year, restaurants and nightlife, medical, healthcare, city engagement, and we had a list of other economic development activities. We're now going into priority year number 2. So this is going to be items we're looking at in fiscal year 24-25 and some more 24-25, 24-25. and then we start getting to fiscal year 3, which now fiscal priority list number 3, which now we're into fiscal year 25, 26. And so the categories are the same. We're just rearranging them. You know, it's the the ones that we talked about earlier. City hall engagement, and then we get into fiscal year 26, 27. And then, so one of the attachments was actually the whole list on an Excel spreadsheet. So, you know, chronologically, we're going through the years, and so this will help us implement it and kind of facilitate us kind of staying on top of these items.
Victor, do you want to go back to the current fiscal year and kind of run by those bullet points that staff will be focusing on?
Sure.
You read
Yeah.
my mind.
So I would just add, I think what we tried to do here is, especially in this fiscal year, there's not much time left, but some of the things you'll see are ongoing, but really it's concentrating on getting to know our shopping centers, making sure we have great data. So we've been going through and seeing where we have vacancies, the HTL study also had a list of businesses, retailers that are expanding, and so trying to connect those. We did a lot of that in San Diego last year as part of the ICSC conference in San Diego. And then also starting to work with some partners from Miles Square Park. You can see trying to get some information from the hotels, seeing if they are amenable to working with us and packaging some deals for all the folks that come to big events at Miles Square Park. See if I can and then again, restaurants, nightlife. So under there, you can see explore a possibility of night markets. What we've actually done is we're looking at something called the Dreamers Market. It's a pop-up market that we've been meeting with. It's actually a really nice concept. They're looking at some sites in the city and days and times, and we're going to come back to you with some information about that. And then again, medical, similar. We're trying to identify those complementary uses. City hall engagement. Victor's already started putting some information together, and Ron as well, about toolkits for businesses. When that Rite Aid closed down because it was so quick, as an example, normally they would go through a process and get information, and the employees would get resources pushed out to them. Victor recognized that that wasn't happening in this case, and so he matched them up with his resources. So a lot of those folks are, because it's a local store, it's a lot of Fountain Valley residents as well, and so that was a great resource that he provided to them. And so really, priority number one, things that we can do now, really getting our the information that we need that will, I think, grow later. And then priority number 2 next year, we'll be adding more, really telling our story, trying to go out to more businesses as they open, going more social media, telling a story on social media and those types of things. And then getting into more city hall engagement, where we're adding liaisons to assist businesses and those types of things. And so, and then 3 and 4 are longer term projects, looking at specific plans, crossing specific plan. And we're going to work with developers now to see what they need in terms of making that specific plan possible. But those changes may come a little bit down the road because that takes a little bit more time, a little bit more effort. So really, it's those longer effort things would take a little bit longer for us.
Okay, you mentioned, Victor mentioned the spreadsheet. I believe that's part of the agenda, which way more detail than what you're showing us here. So I would recommend to the public, if you want to go to the city website under government and city council under agendas and download it, you could see it's pretty detailed. You guys spent a lot of time and effort on that, and it's appreciated. So I'd recommend those who want to see it go to the city website. It'll be listed there.
Yes. And there's even, our spreadsheet has a little bit more data on it. We've already started implementing. We've assigned certain action items to staff, and so they're already working on a number of things as well. But we want to make sure that we're on the same page as city council and the community in terms of setting our priorities. And so we want to make sure that we're on the same page and we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves or concentrating on something that, or not concentrating on something that you think it should be pulled forward now.
Gotcha. Okay. And then thank you, too, Victor, for being proactive and going out to the Rite Aid employees. I thought that was, I saw that, and I thought that was a great touch on your part, so appreciate that. Any other council members have comments on Councilman Harper?
So I have a question. So I saw you have the success metrics over to the right. So would you plan to come back to us, I guess, after the fiscal year and give us an update on how we're doing against the metrics?
I guess depends on the story we have to tell. But no, we plan to keep council updated as we move forward and make sure you know where we're at, and if we need additional resources, or maybe we're ahead of ourselves, or we're hitting the mark, or where we need some assistance.
Okay, maybe I could suggest doing it, I guess, twice a year, maybe August and February, if there's something that comes up in the meantime.
Yeah, I think the next good marker would be, so if you're in a concurrence with, say, priority number 1, then once the fiscal year ends, we'll gather the data and bring it forth, and hopefully by August, I think, is a good time period, and then we'll do the same thing as we move forward.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Omar. Again, the detail on the agenda, the detail on the agenda is pretty good, and I think it's a lot like our strategic planning, where we could maybe assign dates, who's responsible, and bring it back, as Councilman Harper says, and let's grade ourselves and see how we're doing against the plan. All right, anything, Councilman Canine?
Mayor, I just had a couple thoughts. So I think this is organized into 7 key focus areas. I think that's the way I count it. Maybe one thought might be to put into some of these ideas some infographics and the use of color. It's always very helpful to kind of organize themes also graphically as well as in words. And then I've been kind of thinking about when we say tell our story, I think that's an important piece that we should all participate in. I mean, we're a 67-year-old city, a couple years after Disneyland was opened. I mean, what is our story? And I'd be curious to develop that, because if that's rolled into our economic development, then there's that much more emphasis, there's that much more excitement that I think will pick up in the industry, and they'll kind of gravitate towards that. So just some thoughts.
I like it. Okay, anybody else? If not, thank you guys. We'll go on to item number 2. Best practice for a multi-year systemic approach to program and fund building maintenance needs for city facilities. Presentation by Scott Smith, our Public Works Director. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, council members, this item is a presentation on a systematic approach to assess the condition of city-maintained facilities and establish annual budgets within which is best supported the projected maintenance needs. It's a strategic objective, and it's under the goal of maintain, build, and modernize infrastructure to support growth and future needs of the city. Joining me is Mr. Tony Simpson, and he is from Intelligent Systems and Engineering Services. He's a West Coast Vice President. He's going to do a presentation to give some background on some best practices. So, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Scott. Honourable Mayor and Council, thanks for letting me present this evening. I thought I was back in the UK, actually, with all this weather. It was kind of crazy driving here, but it's nice. We need the rain, so that, at least that's a good thing. So I'm going to go through this presentation. I'll go through it fairly quickly at the beginning, because it's really about us and who we are. We're a facilities consulting firm established in 1987. We're actually headquartered in Atlanta, but my office is in Redlands, Southern California here. We do work all through the United States, so it doesn't matter where we are or where the job is. We have assessors around the nation that can then deal with the different projects that we have. We were founded to provide facility condition assessments, and that's our core business. The founder of the company felt that we needed to really stick with that core business and not get into designing and things like that. So it's basically all to do with facility condition assessments. I talked about incorporated in 1987. We're one of the leading companies that provide facility condition assessments and expertise to assist our clientele in all facets of facilities management operations. We do staffing studies, we do other things. My background was in facilities management, and a lot of our vice presidents and a lot of our assessors have facility backgrounds. So we tend to help universities and localities with things like staffing studies and equipment inventories. For equipment, we barcode it all, we put it into work order management systems. So it's a little bit more than just FCAs. You can see on this graph some of the things we do. We do facility condition assessments. We also do infrastructure assessments, operation and maintenance programming, organizational analysis, equipment inventory, and ADA barrier removal plans. As part of the facility condition assessment, there is a section on ADA that we would be looking at. And we look at ADA from a much higher level than if you had an ADA consultant go into your buildings. It's really so that you can put a plan together to take care of the majority of the issues that might be in the facilities. We have 37 years of experience, 75,000 buildings, 3 billion square feet, so it just keeps going up. Here are some of the clients that we've worked with. Specifically around here, we've worked with the City of Anaheim, City of Irvine, and the City of Lakewood. So those are the three cities that we've worked with close to this city. These are the facility types that we've worked on over the years, and you can see there's a lot of different facilities there. I just proposed actually on an ice rink up in Des Peres, Wisconsin, which is kind of interesting. I don't have experience in ice rinks, but the company does. So we've got engineers and architects that have done assessments on that type. So usually we have a large background in whatever properties we look at. So what is an FCA? It's a visual non-destructive inspection. So we walk buildings from top to bottom, from the roof down to if you've got a basement, down to the basement, and we go through every room, and we're basically taking an inventory of what's in those buildings as far as mechanical equipment, electrical equipment, plumbing equipment, ceilings, carpets, and we will quantify all that and provide a roadmap of when those different elements within the facilities need to be replaced. And in the long-term goal is to develop a capital plan so that you know going down the road what is coming up each year for replacement. So it's interesting, Cal State Long Beach had a horrific amount of leaks in their buildings during these rains, so they were able to go to our FCAs and actually look and say, we should have replaced these buildings, you know, they're leaking like sieves now. You know, if they'd have really looked at the plan, they could have got ahead of a lot of those leak issues. We identify current and projected needs, so current needs might be I kind of often use this analogy, but if a maintenance person accidentally hits the side of a building, you've got an immediate need to fix that building. So that would be what we call a non-recurring need. It gets fixed once, and then eventually it'll go into its life cycle. We include code upgrades, ADA, fire life safety, so that those are priced out and in your capital plan, and you can decide basically which of those elements you need to focus on. Our needs are prioritized and have estimated costs. Our estimates are basically based on RS means, but also 37 years of experience. So it's not just RS means, but our in-house estimator basically uses a lot of the RS means items. But you know, if you were replacing an air handler on a roof, you wouldn't just look at RS means to replace that air handler. There are lots of other things to go into that equation when you replace an air handler. You might have roof penetrations to deal with. You could have speed drives you've got to add. There's all sorts of different things, so that would be within our priced items. So when you replace that air handler, most of the items that you would need to replace that air handler would be in that estimate. So we prioritize renewal needs with cost estimates. We provide a detailed life cycle inventory of cyclical renewable components. Every component of a building has a expected useful life. So if you've got a roof, could have an expected useful life of 30 years. If you've maintained it well over the 30 years, it might go for 40 years. And our assessors will make a judgment on the condition of the roof when they look at it to see if they need to extend that life cycle. We also help you make decisions on whether you need to renovate or in some cases demolish a building and build new. Certainly with a lot of our university clients, you know, they're making buildings last forever as best they can, but ultimately they're paying the price for keeping those old energy inefficient buildings going. We provide a centralized database that allows you to see the big picture. So, you know, Scott and his team would be able to produce a capital plan for the next 5 years, 10 years, however many years he would see fit. That is free for the first year, so you get that with our assessments. And then after the first year, I don't remember what we quoted, it's probably something like $3,000 to keep it going. A lot of our clients like to keep it going because they like to update it themselves rather than have us come back and update it. And by updating it, if you replace a roof, you have to go into the database and put, now this roof's 2024. And then you have to pick the type of roof that you've put on. You know, if you've got a built-up roof and you've changed it to a single membrane, you need to change that in the database because it's got a different cost model. So it acts as a roadmap for current and future spending, identifies critical building failure points, and helps justify your budget. And that's the big thing. It's justifying your budget. You know, why are we spending this money and what do we need to spend it on? John Chang, former California Treasurer, says you can't manage what you can't measure, and that is such a true statement. I'm very much a believer in benchmarking and metrics. You've got to know where you're at, and you've got to know if you're improving. Proper management of an asset portfolio means knowing what you have, what condition it is, expected useful life, and how much it'll cost to repair or replace. I always use the analogy of a car, you know, you replace your tires, you have alignments done, you have all sorts of different things done. But it'd be good to know when you should be doing these things rather than just buying a new car and, you know, in 5 years I've got to do this, in 10 years I've got to do that. So it's kind of similar. Certainly I use the car analogy when quite often architects will value engineer a building, and what they usually do is mess with the HVAC, electrical and mechanical, which is the engine of a car. So I kind of look at it that way and say, you know, it'd be better if you didn't mess with the engine. But so, you know, it gets down to repair or replace. So a primary goal of an FCA is to generate data to help you support your decisions. The process is we do an on-site assessment, upload into AMS, which is our software, asset management system. It goes through QA, report delivery, and then we produce a capital plan for you. The systems we look at are the site, exterior, interior, ADA, health, fire life safety, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and vertical transportation. Summary of findings, when we finish the assessment, you will get a total deferred recurring needs projected. We call it deferred renewal rather than deferred maintenance. And I was a facilities manager for many years, and my boss used to tell me, well, why haven't we done the maintenance? And I said, it's not the maintenance, it's deferred renewal. We've deferred replacing things. We're maintaining the heck out of our buildings because they're still running, but everything's out of date. The non-recurring projects are things like ADA, one-time items that you have to do, and then your projected is what's coming up in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Benchmarking gauges building performance. So we'll give you a list of your buildings, and there will be some metrics in there where you can compare that to other cities if you want. You could compare them against Anaheim. You can compare them against cities across the country. These metrics we have what's called an FCI and an FCNI. FCI is facility condition index, which is deferred maintenance divided by current replacement value, and FCNI is all needs, non-recurring and recurring, divided by current replacement value. We look at energy conservation measures, so we'll look at low-cost, no-cost type energy, and we'll do a very, very high-level preliminary energy audit. So we're looking at facilities to bring them back up to standards and conditions that they should be in, enhancing user safety and mitigating liability. A lot of that might be ADA. It might be some of your roofs that don't have guardrails around the roofs and things like that. So we'll identify those and put costs in those, and you can then decide whether you have the funds to do that. So what kind of need is it? We have two needs. Recurring needs are everything that's on a life cycle. So at the end of 30 years, probably your roof needs replacing unless you've been maintaining it really well. That will be a recurring need. Non-recurring needs are what I've mentioned before, ADA, fire life safety, things that generally have changed because of the code changes. Pricing renewal needs, we have an in-house cost library. It's embedded into our software, so when you get our software, you get all the cost library as well. So if you wanted to know what we've allowed for the cost per square foot of carpet tile, it would be in there, and you can then look at all those different costs. We do use RS Means, but as I said, we've developed that library over many years and enhanced it. So establishing current replacement values, we take the base building, we look at the city cost indexes, we look at construction markups, professional fees. We would discuss these with you before we put those into the database to make sure that we've got those fees correct. We include the demo of the building on the site it's at, the size of the building, and situational, where that building is would have an effect on rebuilding it. I mentioned the facility condition index, and you can see there that if you get a score of greater than 0.10, it's in poor condition. Fair is 0.05 to 0.1, and then good is less than 0.05. So there are some metrics that you will see by every building. The FCNI is all the needs, and again, we've got some metrics there: replace, poor, below average, fair, good, or excellent. So our deliverables, we can provide an individual building report for every building. I actually priced it two ways, providing reports and not providing reports, or just providing the database with all the data in it. So there's a little bit of a cheaper version if you didn't want the hard copy reports. The only difference between individual building reports is we wouldn't write an executive summary for each building. We would literally give you all the data in the building, all the photographs, all the data, the recurring need, everything would be in there except the mechanical system description or the electrical system description or the site description. Those don't go into the database unless you have a report. It's a customized FCA database, so we can make it to suit your needs. A lot of our clients change the names of their buildings, so we can go in and change those. Sometimes clients struggle with what the square footage of buildings are, so we have to sort that out before we start. And then our outputs, you can output from our reporting tool in Excel, PDF, whatever. Most of our clients will use Excel at this point. In the future, GIS will be added to, so you would be able to look at a map of the city, and maybe all buildings that are in poor condition are on one layer, and all the buildings in fair condition are on another layer. I live in Redlands, which is where ESRI is, so I'm quite familiar and really actually want to get more into GIS because I think it's a great tool. You mentioned graphics. Graphics nowadays for presidents, council members is perfect for, telling the story. So our database is provided for a year. It houses all the data. It's web-based and user-friendly, includes unlimited training, so you have full support for the full year. We train anybody that wants to use it. A lot of our clients, they prefer not to have edit rights so that people just don't go in and change things, or they assign one person to make the edits. I mentioned you could export to PDF or Excel. Our track record, we deliver on time. If we commit to 3 months, we'll be done in 3 months. We continue support. I just had an email from San Luis Obispo actually today. There was a few things they felt we might have missed from the report, so we go back and make sure we correct that and get it in. But we do want you to look at the report and go through it because, a lot of your maintenance crews know the buildings better than we do. We're having a very quick walk through that building, so we will ask your maintenance staff to give us a lot of information we might not see when we walk a building, like roof leaks. By the time we get there, it might be all, painted over or ceiling tiles replaced, so we wouldn't have known about it unless a lot of the maintenance staff will tell us. So, better data, better decisions. That's my presentation, unless anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Any questions from council? Councilmember Canine first, please.
Thank you, Tony. I just wanted to clarify. So in the due diligence industry, particularly structural due diligence, there's a report called a property condition assessment, or a PCA. I think what we're talking about here is a facility condition assessment. Can you just describe the difference? Because there may be a little bit of confusion.
Well, the property condition assessment is basically the same thing. It's a standard. We work to the ASTM 2015-18 property condition assessment standard. So there is a set standard that we follow for these assessments.
Right.
And as I said, it's a visual assessment. There's no testing, so we don't go in there test for asbestos or test for lead. You know, it's literally visual. Unless you have an asbestos report or you have some reports, we would take those and put the information into the cost analysis.
So that's good to hear, because if, for instance, there was a desire to maybe move into a potential sale, could we rely on your facility condition assessment at least as a starting point or part of the process?
Yeah, we do a lot of due diligence. USC actually asks us quite a lot to do a due diligence before they buy a facility. So we will go in and do an FCA, and basically they're using that with the understanding that you don't use the data that we provide for insurance purposes, but you can use it for seeing how that building, you know, the current replacement value of that building, it will be pretty accurate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Bowie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for the report. I just have a few questions. First of all, I'm excited that staff has reached out, because this is something that I was looking for. In the past, I have asked for certain record, and currently the city doesn't have any system to be able to track down some of the record. And that's a little bit troubling, because not having that, it's difficult to predict years after years what are the future expense that's coming down the pipe as things fall apart. So the way I look at it is like we do it as we go. By having this software platform, we could ideally predict what is going to be the next 5 years based on certain condition that the report's coming back.
Right.
So it's much easier in terms of budgeting and manage the fund that we need to spend as a city. So I'm looking here. So based on your report, it looks like the cost will be approximately $200,000. Is that what it is I'm seeing here, or am I not reading this correctly?
Well, let me see.
Okay.
So that wasn't, yes. He did a estimate for the facilities that's listed in there. We also have parks and some other items that need to be estimated. So I contacted the city of Irvine to see how much they paid to do some parks. So I didn't want to give you a value that was too low if we decide to analyze or to do an assessment of everything. So I'm giving you a value that I don't think it'll exceed beyond that, but I believe it'll be less than that.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarifications. So your program, you will provide the FCA, which is Facility Condition Assessment. In addition to that, we'll have the Asset Management System, which you touched on those points earlier. Would you also include, because like you mentioned, it's a physical inspection, right? And will you also cross-reference, I'm going to run an example. For example, your inspection comes out, well, you know what, I think it's going to be time for, let's say, I'm giving an example, okay? It could be a bad example, but it's an example. Or this carpet, it looks like it's going to be replaced in the next year, that's for example. But according to the carpet manufacturer, when we buy the market, it has a 12 years warranty, but we have one for 5 years. So wait a minute. Are we going to be able to prorate that rather than say, oh, we need new carpet coming in, whether that carpet is normal wear and tear or, extremely, abused by the user, like for example. So how do you go cross-reference that? So I want to see that.
Well, when we give you this roadmap for replacing things, you have to look at that and decide whether you're going to replace that carpet or not. And how I describe it to my clients is you do the replacements based upon liability or... So when you get a deferred maintenance list and you might have some carpet replacements on there may be a roof that's far more important than replacing the carpet. However, if you have a warranty on that carpet and it's not followed its warranty, then I would go back to the carpet manufacturer and said, hey, we got a 12-year warranty on this, but theoretically it still needs replacing. However, you might not have to pay for it, but you will have a cost if you get into a bit of a thing with a carpet manufacturer. At least you'll have a cost and you'll know what we have costed it out at to replace that carpet.
Okay.
I hope that explains.
Yes, I understand now. Thank you. And your AMS system would be able to have an area where our staff will put, like example, they replace the carpet, and we update the date when the carpet was replaced, so we know the longevity of that carpet or whatever the needs to be replaced down the road. Do you have an area for us to input those data to keep track those data for should something come back in the future? It's much easier for our staff to retrieve those data.
Yeah, our database is, it's always live. So if you go into the database and you've replaced a section of carpet and you put the new square footage of carpet that you've replaced, the database will take care of the rest and tell you when the next sequence to replace the carpet will come up. Okay. Same with any component within the building.
Okay, great. That answers my question. The last question for you is, I see that your AMS software solution may integrate the GIS. Do we have a definite answer as how many percent? Because I understand the GIS system, it's a great system. It's very important. Not only can it be served for public facility, but it can serve for residential information as well. So do we know with certainty if we are able to integrate that system or not?
We do know, I mean, I do know it's going to happen. I just don't know when. It's all about money.
Yes.
You know, when the company can afford to implement. We are actually updating our software right now, and a new release is coming out this year. The next release will include GIS. So, and quite honestly, what it's cost us to upgrade our software this year, I think it shocked everybody. As you probably all know, with software, it's like an out-of-control train. When you're trying to update something, the costs just go crazy. But yeah, that is the plan. I just can't tell you when.
And keep in mind, this is a broader conversation. We haven't selected ISIS. Mr. Simpson's been kind enough to come down here. They're one of the recognized leading professionals in this arena. So wanted to have him here to be able to talk to you about the process.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
The other thing quickly is the database will automatically inflate every year. Once we know what the ENR inflation factor is, we will put it into your database, all our clients, and all the costs automatically get inflated by that inflation factor. Over the last 3 or 4 years, those inflation factors have been crazy. 10.05%, 9%. The Cal State system this year wants to go with 9% again, and yet ENR is at 3.4%. So we've inflated the Cal State system 9%, and I think they're right, you know, with the way costs are going right now.
Okay, we have a question from Councilmember Constantine.
Sure. So your presentation reflected a 1-year access for the database. So that's contingent on renewing it annually then?
Yes.
It sounds like if we were to take part in this, we need to pretty much keep it forever, or?
Depending upon which system we selected, yeah, if that was the case. But there is, and I'm sure Tony would have to speak to this, but in most softwares you have the ability to export the data if necessary. So, but that would be part of the decision-making process.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, there are work order systems where clients have exported our data into their work order management system. So it's all in one.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Simpson. Appreciate it. Scott?
Thank you.
Is there a...
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You still have another page.
I do.
Right, the list of sites that we have.
Well, more importantly, and you know, not to take too much time, is at the end of the memo, it's there's a request for council direction on if there's a desire to add a line item into the budget to pursue a facility condition assessment report in the future, whether it be this upcoming fiscal year or future fiscal year. So looking for council direction on that.
Okay. Well, did you want to present the last page? I thought there was another. Or do you not have it on there? It's the list of all the
Oh,
facilities.
no, I didn't bring that up. I'm sorry.
Okay,
It's-
not a problem. Okay. On staff report, we had that. I thought it was interesting. Okay, so let's just go through. So, Councilmember Kaneem, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to move forward with this.
Vice Mayor Bowie?
I think this is absolutely a need for the city, so it's be more manageable.
Councilmember Constantine?
I like the idea. Are we thinking to check with other companies or?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
We'll put an RFQ.
Councilmember Harper?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I'm sure Ryan will be happy to have this as support for the budget as well. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm in favor as well. Okay, I think you have direction that you need. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.